The crisp air of Halloween night wrapped around me like a shroud as I stepped into the dimly lit house. My friends and I had decided to check out the old mansion at the edge of town. It had sat abandoned for decades, festooned with cobwebs and adorned with half-hearted decorations that the neighborhood kids had thrown together. The stories surrounding it were legendary disappearances, strange noises, and the occasional glimpse of something moving behind the cracked windows. But that was all just part of the fun, right? As we pushed the creaking door open, the smell of damp wood and decay hit us like a wave. My friends hesitated, glancing back at the faint glow of streetlights outside. I stepped inside, shining my flashlight around. The beam danced across peeling wallpaper and dusty furniture, revealing a parlor that had seen better days. It was eerily quiet, save for the sound of our breathing and the wind rattling the old windows. "Let's check the basement first," I suggested, hoping to shake off the creeping unease settling in my stomach. We descended the narrow staircase, the wooden steps groaning under our weight. The darkness swallowed us, and the air grew colder with every step. At the bottom, I flicked on my flashlight, illuminating a clutter of old furniture and boxes. My friends laughed nervously, poking at old toys and dusty mementos. That's when I spotted a door slightly ajar at the back of the room. It looked more like a trapdoor, its edges worn and weathered. My curiosity piqued. I walked over and pushed it open, revealing a small, dark space that seemed to descend further into the earth. "Guys, check this out," I called. They hesitated but eventually gathered around, peering into the darkness. It felt as though the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for us to make a choice. With adrenaline coursing through me, I took a deep breath and climbed down the narrow steps. The air felt heavy, charged with anticipation. The room below was small, cramped, and filled with the smell of mildew. My flashlight beam swept across the walls, revealing strange markings scratched into the wood. My heart raced as I noticed that some of the symbols resembled those I had seen in horror movies about ancient rituals. I had read about these kinds of symbols. They were used to summon things best left alone. "Let's get out of here," one of my friends said, clearly spooked. But I was too far gone in my curiosity. I felt an urge to uncover more, to understand what had once been there. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from above, shaking the ground. We all froze, fear surging through us. I scrambled back up the stairs, my friends close behind. We emerged into the parlor, and my heart sank. The front door swung open, flinging itself against the wall as if a powerful wind had rushed through. "Did anyone open that?" I asked, breathless. My friends shook their heads, fear etched on their faces. As we stepped cautiously toward the door, something moved outside. I aimed my flashlight toward the yard, and for a brief moment, I saw a figure standing among the trees, a shadowy silhouette, too tall to be a child, too distorted to be human. I stumbled back, fear gnawing at my insides. "What was that?" I whispered. The figure vanished into the shadows, leaving us in a thick, oppressive silence. We stood frozen, dread wrapping around us. Then, one of my friends, attempting to lighten the mood, joked, "Maybe it's the ghost of the last people who came here," but his laughter sounded hollow. We decided to leave the house, but as we stepped outside, we were met with an unsettling sight. The figure now stood at the edge of the yard, illuminated by the moonlight. It was wearing a tattered old cloak that seemed to meld with the darkness, its face obscured. My heart raced as it lifted a hand and pointed directly at us. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline surging. We sprinted away from the house, feet pounding against the gravel path, fear propelling us forward. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of the streetlights, panting and terrified. As we looked back, the figure was gone, but the air was thick with an uneasy tension. My friends huddled together, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Just then, I reached for my pocket, only to find a small, old pendant nestled in my palm. I recognized it from the basement. One of the symbols was etched on it. My heart dropped. I hadn't taken it. Had it been given to me, a gift from whatever entity haunted that house? My friends gasped as I held it up. It glowed faintly under the streetlight, and I realized the stories were true. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. The night was cloaked in darkness, the air filled with an electric anticipation that only Halloween can bring. My friends and I gathered at my house, eager to embark on our annual tradition of haunted house tour in the neighborhood. Dressed in costumes, we felt invincible, fueled by youthful bravado and a shared love for all things spooky. As the clock struck 8, we decided to check out a rumored haunted house at the end of our street. We had heard whispers about the place being cursed, but that only added to the excitement. Ignoring the chill that crept up my spine, we walked towards the old, dilapidated house. The peeling paint and shattered windows loomed like skeletal fingers against the moonlit sky. We approached the front door, hesitant yet curious. I pushed it open, the creak echoing through the stillness. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and a faint smell of decay lingered. Flashlights in hand, we ventured deeper into the darkness. The floorboards groaned beneath our feet, and the walls seemed to close in around us. Each room we entered revealed remnants of a life-long forgotten, faded photographs, rusted furniture, and cobwebs that hung like heavy curtains. As we explored, the tension among us grew palpable. We dared each other to split up, but I refused, wanting to stick together. Just then, I heard a low, eerie sound emanating from the basement, like a soft whisper beckoning us closer. My heart raced, but curiosity outweighed my fear. We decided to check it out. We descended the creaky stairs, the darkness swallowing us whole. The air grew colder, sending shivers down my spine. Our flashlights flickered ominously, casting ghostly shadows on the damp walls. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from above, causing us all to jump. We exchanged nervous glances, unsure if we should continue or retreat. Probably just the wind, one friend suggested, though none of us believed it. We pressed on, determined to uncover whatever lay below. At the bottom, we found an old, dusty room filled with broken furniture and discarded belongings. In the corner stood a large mirror, its surface covered in grime. Something about it felt off. I stepped closer, peering into the murky glass. Suddenly, the reflection flickered. I blinked and gasped, stepping back as a figure appeared behind me in the mirror, an old woman with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. My heart raced as I turned around, but there was no one there. I looked back at the mirror, and the woman was gone. "Did you guys see that?" I stammered, my voice trembling. "What are you talking about?" My friends asked, their faces twisted in confusion. I explained, but they shrugged it off, laughter bubbling between them. Frustrated, I turned back to the mirror, but this time, my reflection was different. I was still there, but my expression twisted into a horrifying grin, completely unrecognizable. The laughter faded, replaced by silence as my friends stepped closer, sensing something was wrong. As I took a step back, the mirror began to ripple, the surface distorting like a pool of water. A feeling of dread washed over me as the old woman's face reappeared, her eyes locking onto mine. She raised a bony finger and pointed directly at me, her smile widening into a grotesque leer. Panic surged through me, and I screamed, stumbling backward. Suddenly, the room shook, and the lights flickered violently. The air became thick, almost suffocating. I turned to my friends, but they had frozen in place, staring at the mirror with expressions of terror. I glanced back, and the old woman was gone, replaced by my own frantic reflection. Then, out of nowhere, a deafening crash reverberated through the house, and the mirror shattered into a million pieces, scattering glass across the floor. I fell backward, my heart racing, and my friends rushed to help me up, their eyes wide with fear. "Let's get out of here," one of them shouted. We bolted up the stairs, adrenaline propelling us forward. We stumbled out the front door and into the night, gasping for air, relief flooding our senses as we reached the safety of the street lights. As we were grouped outside, we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I turned to look back at the house, and that's when I saw her, the old woman, standing in the window, staring right at us. But when I blinked, she was gone, leaving only an unsettling silence in her wake. We hurried home, hearts racing, each of us too shaken to speak. That night, I lay in bed, the events replaying in my mind. It wasn't until I closed my eyes that I realized something horrifying. The twisted grin from the mirror hadn't vanished. It lingered in the corners of my mind, a chilling reminder of what we had encountered. It was not just a reflection, it was a curse, waiting to be unleashed when we least expected it. I always thought Halloween was a time for fun and laughter, a chance to dress up and get candy. But that year, everything changed. My friends and I decided to explore an old abandoned house on the edge of town. It was a local legend, said to be haunted, but we wanted to see if the stories were true. We approached the house, a decaying structure with boarded-up windows and a sagging roof. The moonlight painted the scene in an eerie glow, and the wind whispered through the trees, sending shivers down my spine. As we stepped onto the creaking porch, I felt a knot form in my stomach. My friends laughed, trying to ease the tension, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. With a deep breath, I pushed open the door, which groaned in protest. The air inside was thick with dust and the scent of mildew. Our flashlights flickered as we entered the darkened living room, and I couldn't help but feel that something was off. We started exploring, and the atmosphere grew heavier with each passing moment. My heart raced as we moved from room to room, peeking into the shadows. Cobwebs hung like curtains, and the floorboards groaned under our weight. I could hear my friends joking and laughing, but each time they spoke, the laughter echoed unnaturally in the hollow silence of the house. In the back of the house, we found a staircase leading to the second floor. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I climbed the stairs, the wood creaking beneath me, my friends close behind. The hallway was dimly lit, and as we moved forward, I noticed a door slightly ajar at the end of the hall. It beckoned us with an inexplicable draw. We pushed it open and were greeted by a chilling sight. The room was filled with old photographs hanging crookedly on the walls. Each picture featured a family, but their faces were obscured, scratched out, as if someone wanted to erase their existence. I stepped closer, trying to make sense of it when suddenly, a loud bang echoed from below. We all jumped, our hearts racing. My friend Mark suggested we investigate, and despite my better judgment, we followed him downstairs. The front door slammed shut, leaving us in darkness. We rushed to the entrance, but the door wouldn't budge. Panic set in as we pulled and shoved, but it was as if an unseen force held it shut. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw something move. A shadow darted past the window, quick and deliberate. We all froze, staring at each other wide-eyed. "What was that?" Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. I wanted to tell her it was nothing, but I couldn't shake the sense of dread. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the kitchen, followed by the sound of shattering glass. We exchanged terrified glances, then decided to stick together and check it out. As we made our way through the darkened house, the air grew colder, and I could see our breath in front of us. In the kitchen, we found the remnants of an old table, but no sign of what had caused the noise. Then, the lights flickered and went out entirely. We were plunged into darkness, our flashlights flickering ominously. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, the fear coiling around me like a snake. Just then, I heard a whisper, faint but unmistakable. "Get out!" It seemed to come from all around us, echoing through the walls. We screamed and scrambled to the door again, desperate to escape. In our frantic rush, we bumped into each other, and I lost my flashlight, plunging us deeper into darkness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the door flew open. We bolted outside, gasping for breath as the cool night air hit our faces. We didn't stop running until we reached the edge of the property. The house loomed behind us, dark and silent, a malevolent presence in the night. As we caught our breath, we looked back at the house one last time. But something caught my eye. There, in the window, I saw a figure standing behind the glass. It was a woman, her face hidden in shadow, but I could see her mouth moving as if she were screaming. My heart raced, and I turned to my friends, but when I looked back, the window was empty. I glanced at the ground and saw something glinting in the moonlight. I picked it up, a small locket engraved with the initials of the family in the photographs. In that moment, I realized the truth. The family hadn't just disappeared. They were trapped in the house, their souls bound to its walls, and now we were marked. With the chill of realization wrapping around me, I knew this Halloween would haunt me forever. The shadows of that house would follow us, their whispers echoing in my mind, urging me to return. It was Halloween night, and I was excited to spend it with friends in an old, abandoned house on the edge of town. The air was crisp, filled with the smell of decaying leaves and the distant sounds of laughter from children trick-or-treating. Our group of 6 had made a tradition of spending Halloween in places rumored to be haunted. We arrived at the house just after sunset, its dilapidated structure looming against the darkening sky. As we entered, the wooden floor creaked under our weight, adding an eerie soundtrack to our adventure. The air felt charged with energy, as if the walls held countless stories of those who had walked before us. We gathered in the living room, where the fireplace was cold and filled with ash. We set up candles and lit them, casting flickering shadows that danced across the peeling wallpaper. "Let's play a game," Jenna suggested, her eyes sparkling with mischief. She pulled out a Ouija board from her backpack. I hesitated, knowing the legends of how the board could summon more than just friendly spirits. But the excitement in the room was contagious, and I soon found myself seated at the board with the others. As we placed our hands on the planchette, the candles flickered, and the atmosphere shifted. We asked our first question, "Is anyone here with us?" A chill ran down my spine when the planchette moved ever so slightly. I looked around, half expecting a prank, but everyone else seemed just as shocked as I was. With each question, the planchette moved more confidently, spelling out words that chilled me. D, it spelled, sending a shiver through the group. We pressed for more details, hearts racing. The lights in the room flickered as we continued, and I felt a strange sensation creeping over me, like being watched. Suddenly, Jenna gasped, pulling her hand away from the board. "Did you see that?" she exclaimed, pointing toward the hallway. We all turned to look, and in that moment, I saw a dark figure standing at the end of the hall, just beyond the reach of our candlelight. It was too tall and too still, like a shadow that didn't belong in the light. My heart raced as I stood up, ready to investigate. "Guys, stay here," I whispered. They shook their heads, but I was already moving toward the figure. As I approached, the air grew colder, and I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I squinted, trying to make out the figure, but just as I reached the end of the hall, it vanished. I called back to my friends, but they were all too frightened to respond. The silence was deafening. I turned to head back when I heard a soft giggle behind me. My stomach dropped, and I spun around, heart pounding. The figure was gone, but the giggle echoed, playful and mocking. I returned to the living room, my heart racing. "Did you hear that?" I asked, but the group was huddled together, whispering. They had seen the figure too. We decided to leave the Ouija board behind and head outside for some fresh air, hoping to shake off the chills. As we stepped outside, I felt a sudden urge to look back at the house. The candles flickered violently, casting long shadows in the windows. And then, for just a moment, I saw it again, the figure, now standing at one of the windows, its features shrouded in darkness. Panic surged through me, and I yelled for everyone to run. We sprinted into the night, laughter and shouts filling the air as we stumbled away from the house. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of the main road. Out of breath, we turned to look back, half expecting the figure to follow. But the house stood still, silent, and dark, as if nothing had happened. Relief washed over us, but it was short-lived. As we caught our breath, Jenna pulled something from her pocket. "I took the planchette," she said, grinning nervously. I thought we might need it as a souvenir. Before I could respond, the ground beneath us rumbled, and I felt a chill run through me. The trees around us began to sway violently, but there was no wind. I glanced at the house one last time, and in the window, I saw the figure again, only now it was smiling, an expression that twisted my stomach. And then it hit me. The figure had never been part of the house. It had followed us, lurking in the shadows, waiting for us to let our guard down. My heart dropped as I realized our Halloween fun had come with a price. We were no longer just visitors. We had invited something into our lives that would never leave.